surprised. Thanks for being here. Please excuse me while I fix the chat. Oh, heavens. There we go. That should help a little bit. Okay, so I know that I wanted to do a story time yesterday, and I didn't include it because I didn't want it to be longer than it was. So I write things in my journal that I'm gonna talk about, not like to script myself or anything like that, just because this is what happened to me, or this is, things I noticed, or a pattern I'm seeing, or, a praise thing that I'm writing about my life and God working in my life. However, there we go. I forgot a little bit about what I wanted to mention here. And the reason I tell story times is to kind of relate, if anyone else out there is feeling isolated, secluded, or alone, just remember that you are not alone. We all go through the same things in life, same cycles, just in different ways and in different times. And the idea is to make a chain, make a link of yourself, to make a wall of light of yourself, to, what is that game? Red Rover, and barrel of monkeys, right? To make that chain of the line of monkeys to assist those who are coming behind you and to be assisted by those who are ahead of you. That is the ideal, in my opinion, I think is what is intended. So the idea is to kind of relay things in my personal life that have been happening since 2018, kind of since the first eclipse. That's where I bookmark it. Although my whole life, looking back now, has been rather supernatural. Since 2018, there's been a noticeable uptick in that for a lot of us. People are openly talking now about things like the Mandela effect, time dilations, the Philadelphia experiment, the fact that it looks like the propaganda we were shown about war is nothing but miniatures and dioramas. And I think that's the case for a lot of things that we're shown about history. So it's important that we all try to hone our discernment the best we can at this time and, share with each other when we think maybe our stories can help each other. So I'm going to go ahead and refer to my journal a little bit just so I stay on track here, because I do have a reading pulled up as well that I think, again, it's important to know thy enemy, and it relates, it's relevant. We're kind of building on previous videos as we move along here. So I'll start with the story time real quick, and then I'll ease into this reading. Now, the reading link is pasted in the description bar as well. So this gets strange. Just kind of hang in there with me. Hi, Sega Boy. How are you? So I was and this has to do with manifesting, especially in this time, because it seems like we are co-creators of our reality. Yes, Jesus does love us. Thank you. He loves you as well. I'm sorry. It's nice to see nice wishes. Anyways, manifesting is something that we're not supposed to be able to do. It's not something that we're supposed to mess with as Christ followers. But I am noticing that our words do have power, and we are told, that our tongues have the power of life and death, to curse or bless, just like God curses or blesses a life, one of our lives. And he works through us. If we have the Holy Spirit, our hands are working for him. We are all little G gods. And when you think about it, it gets all-encompassing and it gets overwhelming, because it really is like you see it paralleled throughout every aspect of nature, with the womb of a pregnant woman to the way the earth looks, to, the eyeball, the Fibonacci shell, that type of pattern replays over and over. Now, Christ told us, ask and you shall receive. And we're told that our tongues have the power of life or death. They can bless or curse. So I'm going to tell you this story. You make of it what you will. But again, we are in different times. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. To me, what I'm feeling when I pray, and I don't mean emotional feeling, I mean when God talks to my heart, I'm kind of thinking like everybody in America, this is our judgment. We wanted to be without God, and so he has removed his hands. Okay, if you want to be your own gods, well, we'll see how that works. And we're seeing a lot of scripts in the background and a lot of strange things. But again, is it just in the media? Or are they just saying things? That's where our personal testimonies come in handy. So I was at my dog's grave, and I lost two dogs that I, in a very bad way. Jack at the end actually had a hole in his cheek. It was like something you saw in Red Dead Redemption or whatever. It was just bad. And so I was at Axel's grave and I was talking to him like most people do when you go to anybody's grave. And again, I'm not trying to divine, I'm not trying to conjure, I'm not trying to do anything like that. I'm just talking out loud. And I'm like, I miss you. You were supposed to be here with me till the end. We were supposed to go through this thing together. You know, times are very strange and this is hard and challenging without you. And I started crying the slow tears, and I got kind of angry. Now again, the power being in your words, you have to think of how much emotion is behind, how much intent is behind that word at that moment. Because the same thing happened to me when I recited Psalms aloud. So I said, you know, I wish that you were like Lazarus and I was as healing as Jesus, because I would tell you to get up out of there, Axel. Although healed and not in that same body, because, you know, I'm at his grave. And I walk away. And remember, we had that cold spell and it's snowing and everything's frozen. And I'm looking for a dog to help. I'm like, you know, maybe we should, you know, I got the time. We have the space. God kind of put it on my heart to take care of the animals in these end times, especially with everybody converting to being Muslim and cat, you know, dogs not being allowed. And so I'm taking care of these animals that God puts in my path. And we got this dog, Toby. Now, if you go back through my videos, Toby has the shape of Axel. He has Axel's ears. He has the shape of his hip. Now, I'm an artist, so I recognize tendons and anatomy in everybody, shapes, bone structure. When I used to pet Axe and go down his hip to try and alleviate some of the pain because he had a really bad back, and I had to do all kind of things for him on my own. And I knew, working in therapy, that if I rubbed that back, no part of this is medical advice, that back leg, that would help, you know, loosen that nerve. Toby has the same shape, the same exact shape. He has the same shaped ears. And Axel was a dachshund, but he had small ears for a dachshund. Toby has these small ears. But his fur is like Jack's. The coat, everything, the same length, the same thickness when he was healthy. The same coloring in some areas, because you'll see he's patchy. Now, all by itself, this part of my testimony, this story means nothing. But let me ease you into the next part, and this is brief. The other day in a video, I said that we tread upon serpents and demons. And I said, just like the flag, the American flag from the vets, don't tread on me. I said, everything is a cult. Everything is a symbol. Everything has a meaning behind it. The next day, when I was walking the dog, one of our neighbors has an American flag, and they had put up the don't tread on me flag. The next day. That's not all. The people at this house have license plates. One of them is tater tots. When my son was young, my husband told him that before he had changed and all this, he told him that he had invented tater tots. And I said, don't joke with him like that, because we were struggling. We were on Medicaid. I was working a lot of hours. He was not working for any part of their childhood. And the other license plate in this driveway is his number, his like lucky number. I'm not done. And I told this story already a couple years ago when we got neighbors right here, when I was talking about Britain and how there's a lot of British flags and how a lot of Brits seem really involved in American politics now. And I said, if I could go anywhere, I'd probably go to West Virginia, because there's an area there where no cell phones are allowed. The next day, we got neighbors that put up a West Virginia flag outside. They were very sweet. I really like them a lot. So again, I'm not saying nothing bad about them. They also got mail. We always got each other's mail, so I'd have to take theirs over to them. They got mail from the UK. This is too many coincidences for me. Too many. It's not the norm of what life used to be, because this is every single day. Either I am manifesting and creating my own reality at this point, mostly, not the big things, but all of these, the weather that I ask for, God gives me rain when I ask for rain. When I go out and when I go outside and if I'm walking the dogs around and I say Ruach HaKodesh, the wind will start to blow. Words have power, but how much power are our words having in this time? Because again, I've got journals filled since 2018, the first eclipse, of instances like this. My channels, both of them, filled with stories like this. I could go on all day, like I legit could. So, when I was a kid, this GATE program thing, I had a lot of these strange instances in school as well. I told you about how I believe they manufactured this whole event to make me believe that I had to get the arm thing, cocktail, because I had said no. When they started doing that in school, nobody asked my mom, and I was like, well, no, you're not doing this to me. And a few days later, a girl on the playground bit me in the arm through my jean jacket, and they raced me to the nurse, and real quick, because that's how Satan works, is quick. They were like, oh, you better get this tetanus thing. Oh, you better get this. So I was like, oh, okay. And after that, my spirit went blind. It blinded my spirit for a long time. Hey, thanks for being here. I pray for you and your health all the time and your well-being. God bless you. So there's too many of these instances for me to sit down and say it's coincidence at this point. This has been years, journals, videos, channels full of these things happening, but I'm not the only one. I am seeing cases like this, if they're real, all over the place. So it's very odd to me. I also, at the beginning of this channel, I said, it's pretty jive if people know more about a person's life than they do. And none of them, not one, says anything. Not one grows to have affection for this person. Like Truman, he had one person who told him the truth. I haven't had any. But, if I change my perspective, I could say, perhaps all of these people are trying to tell me, in their way, without this spirit that hates me, I hope it's the Antichrist spirit that hates me. It seems to go after the things that I am affectionate towards, or the beings that I love, the institutions that I love. It seems to be attacking them on every front at this point. My hometown is getting pummeled right now. Just pummeled. And I'm nobody special. I'm just some woman who is lame, and I've turned the other cheek almost my whole life. I have a mouth. I'm snarky. Like people dislike me for that. Most think I'm unlikable. But I've constantly given to these people, to these same people who have made a laughingstock of me. I've constantly turned that other cheek. The tide is turning, but it's nothing that I have done, so please understand that. God is my defender. I don't operate that way. I'll get mad and I will say careless things. Now, there are alleged stories about Christ when he was small, and him doing things that people thought were wicked and evil because they thought they were causing harm. But if you actually read the context of these stories, the adults around him should have explained to him that his words had this kind of power. You see, I think that we've been raised and misled about this, some good, some bad, because they thought it was better. But deception is never better. They've raised a whole generation. Half of them are indoctrinated to Mammon, to him, to Satan, right? To that satanic principle, ideal, if you don't believe in the deity of Satan or whatever, the entity of Satan. And then the other half are intentionally blinded through alchemical poisons. You see, I don't think it's alchemy that's bad. I don't think it's gemstones that's bad. Because if you read the Bible properly, every person has their own situation. Okay, men are told to keep their hair short, but what about Samson? There is natural law that everybody is supposed to follow. And then there is mandates for case by case, tribe by tribe, culture by culture. I believe that, and I think it's obvious in God's kingdom. And trust, this is God's kingdom. This isn't Satan's, and I'm sick of people saying that. I just don't care anymore. So I'm going to read to you. The link is in there. Now that I've told you my story time. And again, you can make of it what you will, but I had to confess that because I didn't attempt to enact necromancy. Christ was accused of necromancy because Lazarus wasn't the only one that he raised from the dead. He had raised a bird from the dead as well that some other boy had caused harm to. What's the headwear called? Look, it's old school. It's just a bandana, man. Like, it's not. I was sweaty. Like, I don't glow. I sweat. It's okay. Okay, so on this channel, we don't read whole books because that's copyright. And I add my own commentary so that we can maybe talk, talking about things helps the idea evolve and helps you to comprehend things. But again, we also keep in mind that our words have power. So we try to say allegedly, supposedly, it seems to be this way. We want to be careful in this time. And I just told you why. Right. Widget Rosie. It has something to do with a wrench. Oh my gosh. What do they call? Ratchet Rosie. Rosie Ratchet. Ratchet Rosie. Ratchet? Nurse Ratchet. Oi. Has something to do with a wrench. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyways, this is called Heritage History. That's the website. This is called Satan, Prince of This World, William Guy Carr. Prince of This World. Now, again, I don't agree with everything I read on the channel, and I'm going to say the way I understand it is the monetary system belongs to Satan. The military system belongs to Satan. Nature, the earth itself, we have dominion over it, and God's just waiting for us to reclaim that dominion. And dominion does not mean to dominate with a heavy hand or to abuse, misuse, or to end, sentient life forms. Read Isaiah. That is going to come into play here. And a lot of people hate when I talk about it, but it's true. War will stop. That meat grinder will stop when we stop putting us other beings through it. Because we're being put through that by the fallen ones. Okay, so we're going to jump right to how Satan controls information. I don't know. It doesn't have a chapter number, but I guess because it's posted free on this website or whatever. But most of us have heard of William Guy Carr because sources matter. But again, take some of the, grain of salt. Use your discernment. Here we go. How the synagogue of Satan controls the channels of public information. I thought this would be helpful in this time. Little bro. No, I'm a female, which is obvious. At first, I couldn't understand how the synagogue of Satan could possibly control the publication and sales of newspapers, periodicals, and books throughout the world in order to keep the masses from suspecting that the directors of the conspiracy plan to enslave them body, mind, and soul. Then the study of Robinson's exposure of Weishaupt's 22 United Brethren. That's why I decided to read this chapter first, is that 22. And I've told you about all of the synchronicities and strange instances of 22 being attached to people with the Antichrist spirit. Though I know and love these people, some of them. Then the study of Robinson's exposure of Weishaupt's the 22 United Brethren solved that problem. Weishaupt required that in every reading society and in public libraries, the books to be read would be selected by the quote-unquote managers who serve the Illuminati. After they have molded public opinion, they make the quote-unquote common believe he is uttering his own sentiments when he is actually only echoing and parroting the thoughts put into his mind by the books and articles to which he is given access. We know this to be true. Faith comes by hearing. Anyone that listens to something enough, reads the same thing enough, they're going to be influenced by it, because unfortunately we are sponges. We soak up information in that way, right? No, it's all good. Somebody said that yesterday I looked like a middle-aged bus driver. I should have said which is almost true. I was going for the cafe lunch lady look. So it's all gravy. I have a sense of humor about it. I know that I'm not beautiful or whatever. It's okay. I'm beautiful to God. All right, here we go. So it says, today authors comply. Oh, sorry. The booksellers in Weishaupt's day were also the publishers. Conflict of interest. So again, you have everything funneling from the same few sources, the same few organizations, corporations. When Weishaupt, through the Illuminati and their quote-unquote reading societies, controlled the reading of the public, the publishers and booksellers had to print what they wanted to have printed. Weishaupt even used his plan to force authors to write material which directly or indirectly furthered the plans of the SOS, Synagogue of Satan. Just like SOS didn't mean Son of Sam, it meant Synagogue of Satan, because no one person was responsible for all those murders. True fact. Today, authors comply with this requirement or find it impossible to get their work published. To quote his own words, Weishaupt wrote, quote, "When we, by degrees, bring the whole trade of bookselling into our hands, we shall bring it about that at least the writers who labor in the cause of superstition and restraint will have neither a publisher nor readers," end quote. How true those words have turned out to be. Then again, he said, quote, "When lastly, by the spreading of the influence, our fraternity, all good hearts and sensible men, will adhere to us, and by our means will be put in a condition that enables them to work in silence upon all courts, families, secretaries, parish priests, public teachers, and private tutors," end quote. In other words, what are we going to do tonight, Brian? The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Trying to take over the world. It was that Weishaupt set up the plan to control all channels of public information. Can any unbiased person say that conditions today do not prove that newspapers, periodicals, books, play, TV, media, and radio only tell the public what those who direct the Synagogue of Satan want the public to know? Was there ever a time when men and women over beer, liquor, and cocktails think they are voicing their own opinions when they're simply parroting what they've been forced to read or hear? You see that same thing on the internet. I can't tell you how many times I've seen the comment, "Real eyes, real eyes, real lies." Like, it's just, oh, that sounds cool. That's a neat soundbite, man. I'm going to say it over and over again. What does it mean, man? Like, it's just... So many people get put on autopilot when they are forced to rush or adhere to a schedule that is by the clock and not by the sunlight, the way things used to be. And Satan knows whenever somebody wants to rush you through a decision or to encourages you to make a hasty decision about something in life, that's not the way to go. Anyone that's not going to give you time to assess the information to try and make a decision. Now, I'm not talking about an emergency of helping your family or something like that. I mean a job, a project, Signing a contract, which is a big one. They often will just come out of nowhere with these things. That has been the strangest thing in my life, I think, is how many people out of nowhere just hey, you got to sign this really quick. It has to be done, blah, blah, blah. It's for this, da, da, da. It's just weird. Very strange. Okay, sorry. Well, double-tongued Illuminists boast about freedom of thought, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom to speak, and freedom from fear. Just how much freedom does exist. Let any individual just try to argue against the propaganda put out by the agents of the SOS, Synagogue of Satan, and he is immediately knocked down, smeared, boycotted, ridiculed, and represented as having a nut loose in the upper story. Either that, or he's accused of being completely insane. Or, nowadays, their favorite, because they know it triggers most human beings emotionally, they tell you somebody's a child harmer. Immediately, people assume that person is no good and that they are guilty. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist and it's foul. That's why I lost my life, socially speaking, was for trying to stand firm in some values and morals when I realized we were kind of off the rails with things. They come after you. There is no mercy. And it is what it is, Yeah, she's a yapper, Skip. You don't have to stay, man. That's too much. All right, Weishaupt adopted the six-pointed star as one of the emblems of his Illuminati, not because it's the Star of David, but because his program consists of 6 main points. They are as follows. 1, abolition of all existing governments. 2, abolition of all existing religions. 3, abolition of all private property. Sound familiar yet? 4, abolition of all inheritance. Ooh, no, you can't do that because God gives us our inheritance, and our inheritance is the land. Especially if you are a Native American tribe, understand what sovereignty is, man, and stand firm on it every day. And that's what I do, and that's why they hate me. None of this belongs to them, and they know it. They gave up their first estate, which was in one of the 7 heavens. Okay, abolition of all inheritance, abolition of the family as the cell from which civilized society shall develop. 6, abolition of patriotism as far as national government are concerned, meaning make it international, right? How can the above objectives form part of a Roman Catholic, Jewish, or Masonic plot to achieve world domination? Pike, Weishaupt's successor, has distinctly stipulated in his works written a century later that 1. The first world government shall be turned into a totalitarian, Luciferian dictatorship. Now, this is, remember, the letters of Albert Pike, the Freemason. 2. The universal religion imposed upon those of the Goyim, human cattle, who survive the final social cataclysm shall be, quote, the true light of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, end quote. Meaning they will force it upon you. 3. That all the Goyim, human cattle, shall be enslaved and turned into, quote, one vast conglomeration of mongrelized humanity, end quote. 4, that breeding will be strictly limited to types and numbers required to fill the requirements of the state, which is your new god. 5, that all breeding, as far as the Goyim are concerned, will be done by IVF practiced on an international scale, wow, limited to 5% of males and 30% of females, specially selected for this purpose. Specially selected through these fake alien abductions that they've been running on the public for many years now. I'm not saying that these things don't exist. I'm saying that they're in cahoots together. 6, that rigid control of the minds of the Goyim shall erase all knowledge of the past, including, this is why they don't, this is why they're knocking down history, right? We're helping them because we're searching for truth, but at the same time, we are knocking down all of our current institutions with them. The problem is what they're going to replace it with. It says 6, rigid control of the minds of the Goyim shall erase all knowledge of the past, including religions other than the Luciferian ideology, which is survival of the fittest. There will be no disabled, there will be no elderly, and of all other forms of government other than the Luciferian dictatorship. Because bigotry is used by those who serve the SOS, Synagogue of Satan. Understand something too as well. You need to know this as mankind, as members of mankind, as the members of that species. The beings that are in Freemasonry either A, have the bloodlines that are not entirely of mankind. They're not God approved or what have you. It wasn't kind with each kind. They were mixed, right? Like grafting two different roses together, or two different plants together. They are the fallen. They have no say over us. And this is what I have to constantly interrupt authors like this and other people. I have to keep reminding people, we are sovereign. We are little g gods, and that's what Christ meant by that. These people cannot force anything upon you without your consent because they're demonized. So they are below us in the hierarchy, the spiritual hierarchy. And I am a pacifist, do no harm, but stand firm in your humanity and your sovereignty, that it doesn't have to, that they don't have say unless you give it to them, unless we give it to them. Okay, so here we go. Because bigotry is used by, and again, I don't care what religion anyone's in, everybody's welcome here, only hatred is not. I love my Muslim brothers and sisters who have spoken with me, and I mean brothers and sisters as far as being members of mankind, but I don't go for any kind of hate, and I'm a pacifist personally. But I think we all have a common enemy, and I think that's what we need to focus on. Because bigotry is used by those who serve the synagogue of Satan to keep those they plot to subjugate divided amongst themselves. Divide and conquer on religious and racial issues. He never changes his approach. He never changes his chess moves. That is to our advantage because we can use our pattern recognition skills and say, aha, I know how to beat Mario. After a few times of seeing this move, I can avoid this. I'm not going to let you divide me against other members of men and women and children, and I'm not going to hate on them. I'm going to show them love, and I'm going to show you love too, right? We're not going to fall for these tricks anymore. So it says, they plot to subjugate divided amongst themselves on religious and racial issues. I wish to debunk those who claim the World Revolutionary Movement, WRM. Now that's worm. I talked about how that was really big in my personal testimony. You'll see that word used a lot. I'd never heard of a worm moon. It was always called something else, like a harvest moon. Never heard of it until, again, these last 7 years. So it said the revolutionary movement is designed to give Roman Catholics, communists, Jews, Freemasons, Nazis, or any other political or religious group undisputed world domination. Don't for one moment think I'm not fully aware of the fact that there are bigoted, narrow-minded, foolish, and utterly deceived Roman Catholics, communists, Jews, and Freemasons, fascists, and others who firmly believe that the world's problems would not be permanently solved until the organization to which they belong, be it religious or political, does rule the world. And this doesn't really adhere to females so much, again, because we are nurturers. We carry life in our bodies. Females who are fully of mankind anyways. So let me, again, I don't agree with everything that he's saying here, but basically there are members, and again, this holds true. Everyone thinks that their own ideals, this would be perfect if things were ran this way. I would do it this way. I would do it that way. That's why we need to have a common standard that we all kind of adhere to. The big ones. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal from your neighbor, don't murder. That should be it. We shouldn't micromanage ourselves to death with these laws, and that's what we're doing. Because those who are in high places aren't even human anymore, and they gave up their first estate. So technically, we don't have to follow what they say. But make no mistake that they are in every organization at this point. It doesn't matter which one you look at. They're in every religion. They're in every organization and every institution. So it says, these deceived people indeed need true enlightenment. The Third World War was planned by Pike nearly a century ago, which most of us know now. It is now in the making. The final social cataclysm, as he explained it to Mazzini August 15th, 1871, and as it has been explained to members of the Palladian Rite and Grand Orient Lodges by lecturers ever since 1885 is to be made to involve not only Roman Catholicism, but the whole of the so-called Christian world and the masses who are now controlled by communism in Russia and China. So again, this is this counterfeit church that a lot of us have talked about. This is the copy of the church, the ape of the church. The one on the screen is never a good representation of that group, no matter which group, be it Christian, Muslim, Caucasian, chocolate, cocoa, pink, whatever group you are a part of. It's just sad that we've not grown beyond all this. I don't get it myself, and I'm never going to understand it. Okay, so it says Freemasonry and Judaism are also to be destroyed in order that the Luciferian ideology, the new order, may be established on the ruins of all of the old orders. Gentiles and Jews, communists and Freemasons should not fool themselves. They and their beliefs are all marked down for complete liquidation, as are all other political, religious, social service, and similar organizations. It is intended that there shall be a clean sweep, a purification by, quote, the fire of the Magi, end quote. Ooh, sounds like MAGA, doesn't it? I was the first one that did that video too. We broke down the etymology and said, whoa, MAGA means Magi, magician. To prove how, and again, it's everybody. And people don't understand this. They're using each group now to take the other groups out. And in the end, there will be people from all these groups who were within these groups and acted as Trojan horses and went into churches, went into towns with the specific intent of tearing them apart, breaking them apart, and then rebuilding them in the Luciferian image. Ugh. I don't understand why people knowingly sign on with this. To prove how ridiculous the charges against Catholicism really are, history proves the Vatican suspended the Jesuits as a teaching order after Weishaupt's perfidy had been made known. This suspension wasn't lifted for many years. I believe it was 30 years, he says. While Weishaupt remained unsuspected, he was, quote, happy as a Jesuit. He wore a cloak that hid perfectly his diabolical activities. But when the Jesuits were disbanded by the papal bull, he showed his true colors and directed the Illuminati's hatred against all members of the Jesuit order. This hatred has been continued by Illuminists against the Jesuits ever since. Jesuit schools and colleges have been closed, and the members of the order have been persecuted in every revolution since. And that's true. Like, they take it personal. The people that I know personally that are attached to these organizations, they're all demonized. And you can tell it just by looking at them if you have any spiritual discernment about yourself. And they hold a grudge, right? I remind my family of certain things only out of severe frustration that they don't have their, like, they're tuned out. They're on autopilot all the time. They weren't always like this, right? They weren't always like this. And so I will be like, what's wrong with you? Trying to wake them up. Like, don't you remember what it meant to, have compassion for somebody else who was in this situation? You and I were in this situation before. Why are you being, so hateful? But they will hold a grudge. They will hold a grudge, and when you forgive, it does require a certain amount of forgetting. And I understand that now especially. But spiritual wisdom also teaches you don't have to trust everyone. And so you need to remember your prior dealings with people. Say, wait a second, I don't really want to sit down and have a meal with you and break bread with you because you're kind of on the other side and I can't trust you, just for a small example. Okay, so here we go. To prove how ridiculous it is to charge Freemasons with directing the WRM, we have only to study the efforts of Professor Robinson of Scotland, the Duke of Brunswick in Germany, and the Grand Masters of the British Lodges and Captain Henry Morgan of New England, USA, made to try to stop Illuminists infiltrating into the lodges of Freemasonry and to prevent Freemasons fraternizing with Grand Orient Masons and those of Pike's new and reformed Palladian rites. We must remember also that Copen Albincelli was a 33-degree Mason. See, I feel like he's double talking a bit. What does he mean there? So he's distinguishing, he's removing, I can see what he's saying, though. Satan would infiltrate every organization and micromanage them and not have this one knowing what that one's doing, so no one gets a full picture, and this is how people are deceived into being parts of this organization, probably. It says he was selected to go beyond the 33 degree into the mysteries of the Grand Orient Masonry and those of the Palladian Rite. Myself, I think things are taking more of the Egyptian Aleister Crowley route. Everybody's doing this whole thing. That's a Osiris ritual. That whole thing that they do, I don't even want to do it, but the thing that they do with their fingers and all that, most of that can be traced directly back to Egyptian Babylonianism. And some people are missing the boat on that. Even a lot of these authors, I feel like they're not, you can see it manifested everywhere now. It's in the music, it's in the music videos. When the Rona lockdowns happened, they did that movement of the sarcophagi and the sepulchres of the Egyptian order. So something is going on there. And Beyonce herself, you know, Queen Bee, she seems to be a manifestation of Isis in this time, or of, you know, one of the women of that time. Not anymore so much. Again, everybody seems to be different. They're like dead in the eyes. I don't know anymore. So we're going to move on because he's still going on and on. I want to know how, like, Satan's devices, and we're doing history here. And we know Albert Pike. Okay, so he says here, after going through the spiel about every group, Weishaupt and Pike are both on record as saying Jews and also anti-Semitism were to be used to serve their own secret plans and diabolical ambitions. Right. Have everybody accusing each other, dividing, you know, all this. I see what he's meaning. And Trump is the perfect, like, president for it. Blocking up pieces of America, selling it off to the highest bidder for the natural minerals that are found everywhere, breaking it apart, the old system, and then building it up into this new international thing, because I've heard that China owns some of our farmland. The Catholic Church owns a lot of land, allegedly, in America. The Mormon Church owns a lot of land. So again, this ideology has no borders. It's broken into every institution, every government, every home. And most homes only have one person, if that, who is willing to stand firm in this time and ask questions and seek, you know, truth. Not just information, not just data, but truth, okay? He goes on to say, this phase of the conspiracy will be dealt with more fully later, so he'll explain that. He says, we give the above information in order that people who are sincere in their search for truth may be on their guard against bigots and those who stir up strife based on differences of color, race, and or creed, right? Religion, all of it. Time after time, we have it in our years, in the press, on TV, by public speakers, parliaments, from pulpits everywhere, all the time, that communism is in reality a fight for possession of the minds of men, and therefore the root of all evil and responsible for the mess the world finds itself in. That is the biggest lie that SOS ever thought up and propagated. The synagogue of Satan to foment World Wars I and II. I would almost agree with that after having read all the information I've read at this point. I'm not saying communism is good or anything like that. Or the force, like coercion, anything through force is going to end up in some type of strife, right? You should not force other sentient beings to live in a way or work in a way that does not suit them and their natural abilities and talents. So you're going to have, you know, things stirred up no matter what. But to me, communism, you think of communal living, and that's something I would willingly choose. Like, I would be okay with sharing things like the Essenes did, like the old communities. I would be okay with, at this point, with being a Luddite and learning how to live without technology. The problem is that's very hard to do as one with the limitations that we seem to have today. But again, I think we've been freed, and we just kind of, some of us, and we just kind of haven't realized it yet. Not everyone. You know, God will heal the people when they repent. He will heal the land and the people. So when one individual repents, God will heal you, you know, if that is what is best for you and your situation. So again, what's good for the individual is also, to me, good for the family, good for the community. But the way they're breaking people down, again, all of this to me is anti-human, and that's what we need to keep in our mind, is that we are one species, the species of mankind. Not everyone here is, but again, do no harm. But it's about doing things through love, and about doing applying the knowledge, the true knowledge, the truth that we have, applying it daily with wisdom. And this to me all seems anti-mankind, therefore it's anti-God. And it's a spiritual war because they can't attack God. Well, I mean, they can try, but they'll be instantly smited or whatever. But they can attack us if we, and this is why I talk about frequency and stuff now. It's not to be new age, it's scientific. We're not supposed to be on the same frequency as them. That's the veil, right? That we can't see these beings and they can't interfere with us. But we're not living in normal times. All right? So let's check something out here. Hold on one moment, because I'm going to post something. Hold, please, because I am picking something for you. Okay, so they're calling it WORM, the World Revolutionary Movement. Okay, I want to read this part to you before I end this video. That'll take it to about an hour. This is Luciferianism. In order to be able to realize that the WRM, the World Revolutionary Movement, is a continuation of the heavenly revolt, we must understand Lucifer, know thy enemy, what Lucifer did in heaven, and why before he and or Satan caused our first parents to defect from God. Being the highest, brightest, and most intelligent of God's creatures, he also had a free will. He could will to remain loyal, faithful, and obedient to God, and accept God, Adonai, as the supreme authority over the entire universe. Or he could challenge that quote-unquote right. Lucifer in heaven was next to God. He was intelligent, therefore it is obvious that he could not have envied him. St. Thomas said, only a fool can be envious of what is so far above him as to be impossible of attainment. Lucifer is no fool. He was also the choir director. That's why he runs the music industry down here. Lucifer's pride in his angelic attributes, i.e. office, character, and personality, could have caused him to desire to be in his own order as God is in the divine order. In other words, Lucifer's pride in his own perfections could have made him wish to become the ruler of his own order rather than remain a subject of God, regardless of the exalted state to which he had been elevated by God. This line of reasoning does not infer that Lucifer was fool enough to wish to dethrone God. He simply wished to rule a section of the universe in his own right. Today, many human beings suffer from the same kind of inflated ego. It could be termed an overwhelming desire for absolute independence or self-sufficiency. St. Thomas, Scotus, and Suarez agree that the sin Lucifer committed was the sin of pride, but they disagree with each other on exactly what constituted his sin of pride. I think it was because he refused God, like he did not want to serve men. And they're supposed to act as mediators between God and the Most High, or the Most High and mankind. And he didn't like men. The first thing to understand, like, about demons, even the ones who cause sensual perversion, and I hope you understand what I'm saying there, any exorcist that you listen to, and if you dig enough, the demons, the fallen angels, the little g gods that these people try to conjure and sometimes effectively conjure today, they dislike human anatomy to a fault. That's why we're kind of like pets to them. They don't like our bodily functions. This is why they don't want to see the mouth. They don't want to see our smiles. They don't want to see the teeth. Image of God, breath of God. It smells to them no matter what it smells like. They don't like our physicality because we're made in the image of God. And they can attack us, but not God, right? He's above them. And any being that is a proper God, no offense, but I mean, having the heart of a mother and having my own children reject me, God hides himself. God is not easily found. That says to me, God has a tender heart. Rejection hurts. It's harmful, especially from your children. Now, this person, Mr. Carr, goes on to say, my studies have convinced me that Lucifer's sin of pride consisted of his determination to break from God and set up his own dynasty. I mean, that's kind of true, but I think that was an effect, not the cause. You see what I'm saying? I think the cause was what I just said, and this is the effect. He's like, well, I'll just make my own army. I don't think it was a dynasty. I think he wants an army just to go after God's people. No other intention. Just now, at this point, out of pure malice. Because you can tell when somebody falls to pride, or any sin really, and they give into temptation, their intellect is darkened. Like, they can't see basic, coalitions, like information. They can't make basic connections. I don't know how to describe it. You'd have to see it to understand what I mean. You'd have to know somebody who is reasonably intelligent, book smart. They do something and then they don't confess, or that they don't do what they should and improve themselves or make amends for it. They get dumb. They get kind of dumb. My studies have convinced me that Lucifer's sin of pride was consisted of his determination to break from God and set up his own dynasty. I say military. I am supported in my conviction by biblical authority. And history. Lucifer got what he wanted by leading the heavenly revolt. I don't know if he exactly got what he wanted. He persuaded vast multitudes of various levels of the angels to join him, unfortunately. Among these were 1/3 of the highest, brightest, and most intelligent of the heavenly lost. Now keep in mind, they fell too. They sinned too because they went against the natural order of things. You can't be a fork and try to be a spoon and think that there's no consequence for that, because God knew how much his actions would harm his other children, which are men, women, and children, humans, right? So Lucifer gets dumb too. This is why you see, like, as time goes on, you're noticing it, right? How everything's degrading. The media is degrading. How certain people talk is degrading. The way they tend to themselves is degrading. They're starting to have the physical appearance of who they are on the inside, how their spirit looks. And for some, it's shocking and frightening. And some people have straight up, they've taken what's called a Mahan oath, and I know that because this is what they wanted to do to me, and God led me through all this information. Basically, a Mahan oath is when you sacrifice a loved one. It's what all the celebrities do. It's the same type of thing. But they're telling you that it can't be achieved, and I mean, it can. You can jump into the body of somebody else, but there is a severe penalty to pay for that, because where's that other soul go? It is not consent. If it's manufactured or manipulated, it is void. It does not count, which means they are in big trouble right now at this point. And I think God he has us on like kind of a pause. And I'm supported by that in like this time dilation thing. Anyways, Lucifer got himself expelled from heaven and cast into hell, and this was exactly what he wanted. Since then, he has struggled to wean as many others away from God as possible so that they may come under his dominion. Right. We know of his activities only on this earth, and we call this the World Revolutionary Movement. Okay, the original Luciferianism. Hey there, hope you're doing well. My purpose in reading my last 3 books, Mr. Carr says, I doubt if I shall be granted time to write others, has been to shed light on the WRM. Remember, worm. If you hear people throwing around these words, doing them symbols with no reason, this is why. And the SOS, a subject of such great importance that it affects the life of every human being and his or her immortal soul. Many priests and ministers have told me of their appreciation of my motives. Okay, Mr. Carr, is that enough self-flattery? On the other hand, there are priests and ministers who, when asked by their parishioners to express an opinion on the hidden chapters of biblical and secular history as exposed and explained in, he's referring to a couple other books, Pawns in the Game and Red Fog Over America, have said, quote, we have what he writes borders on hearsay, end quote. What they don't mention is the great truth expounded by the greatest theologians and philosophers of the Church of Christ, i.e., all truth borders on hearsay. What really matters is that when expounding the truth, we don't step over the borderline as defined in Scripture. When ministers or priests close the door to a mind seeking further knowledge of the truth, they serve the devil's purpose. And this is true. How many times are we told, Eve was on a quest for knowledge too, like knowledge is bad. Finish the sentence. Knowledge of good and evil. Because we didn't know what evil was. We didn't know there was a difference. We just were. We couldn't go against, but that's kind of like animalistic, right? Animals aren't in trouble for what they do. They go according to their nature. We stopped going according to our nature. I feel like it's a hand-in-hand thing, though. I feel like it had to happen to activate our free will. That's my current opinion. If it changes, I'll let you know. Maybe you can change my mind. It says, a Presbyterian minister in Ottawa said that my writings were unmitigated nonsense. A minister in Owen Sound published a pamphlet stating that I was anti-Semitic and spreading modern hearsay. These men and several others, both Gentiles and Jews, have done their best to involve me in arguments and litigation. They probably intended, by doing so, to use my time to such an extent that they would seriously interfere with my determination to throw as much light as I can on this subject. In case readers run into this kind of criticism, I wish to remind them that the knowledge of ministers and priests is subject to the restrictions placed on them by their curricula laid down by those who control the seminaries of a particular faith. My studies over a period of 40 years have never ceased. I've never allowed my mind to be subjected to limitations. This is the way I believe that God intended it to be. What I write, I believe to be the truth. Readers should consider the hidden facts of history as detailed in my writings to form their own opinions and reach their own decisions. That's true. It is nothing to be amazed at when theologians and philosophers disagree. Only God and the devil know on whose side they are. Matthew 7:15 warns us of false prophets in sheep's clothing, even as far back as Jeremiah's day. And I told you some of them, what is our clothing as sheep? Well, fur is to sheep as skin, flesh is to humans. Some of them straight up are wearing us like suits. We are containers to them. That word has been going around. That is all we are to them. This is why they want you to think that your body, your physical body, doesn't matter at all. But think about it. Everything you do with your body ends up being good for it or not good for it. That's sin, transgression, to go against nature, to put things in the body that aren't good for it. And this does, we're told in Scripture and lots of ancient texts, that this affects spirit, right? That this affects, think about it. You eat certain foods, if they have a lot of salt, maybe they get you angry, right? Because they get your heart rate going. I'm not a doctor, no part of this is medical advice. All my disclaimers are in the description box. But you get what I mean, I hope. Okay, so your body matters a lot more than they want you to believe. And by giving it up probably too early, they're then wearing them like skin. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Like, we have to understand what's happening here and the times we're in. We need to get it. You know why Pam Anderson isn't wearing makeup? Times of war, the products that you have should be looked at with High suspicion. I hope that the message I'm trying to send gets out. And I always give little leaks like that, so I hope you're listening. Ladies especially. But men, be suspicious of all products during times of war. Look into the prohibition and what they did then. They poisoned their own citizens' liquor to get them to stop drinking, to force people to kind of ease up. They figured the collateral damage was worth it, and that's public knowledge. That's public record at this point. Ask yourself why these Epstein files were released and we still don't have the files on Kennedy. I will say, however, it's kind of like birthing pains. There are more eclipses now than ever in my lifetime. I've never seen so many. There's always one coming. But you see, that's like birth pains. They're getting closer and closer and closer to gather these events in the sky, and these supernatural instances. And yes, we can be fooled by things in the sky, so take all of those things with a grain of salt. If you can't touch it yourself and you're not like there with whatever it is that they try to show us in the next several months, please be wise. The goal is to get you baited enough and emotional enough that you react without thinking and that you cause some type of violence to another, because then these other beings that are everywhere now, they will have legal rights to do that to you. This is why I'm trying to encourage everybody. Isaiah tells us when war will be done for mankind. And it is when we are done subjugating others of our own species and those in the animal kingdom. That's when it will stop. But everybody's, again, a lot of people seem to have darkened intellects at this time. And the priests even say they had more calls than ever during the lockdowns. Trust me, those are timed very intentionally, and they are very intentional about what they put through your screens. Why do you think they want streaming in everybody's home? Why do you think that? Something that's live and you can pick it whenever you want. Well, if everyone has their own demonic attachment at that point, do you think they can change what you see on the screen, what you hear maybe? Give you something different than they give the masses? Maybe to cause arguments. We already know most people in homes are divided politically, religiously at this point. It won't take much. Please be wise. Be careful. Don't be baited. Christians and holy orders should never forget that regardless of any consideration, including the oath of obedience they give to superior authority, their first allegiance, like that of a soldier or sailor, is to God. No oath can bind them to commit sin. So again, remember in this time, you can't be forced into anything. Don't give them consent, all right? That's what they're aiming to do, though. This person goes on to say, keeping silence or failure to tell the whole truth regarding the WRM is a sin against God and a crime against God's creatures. Tell the truth and shame, confound the devil, should be the motto of every militant Christian. This truth was repeatedly emphasized by the late Pope Pius XII when he told parish priests that they are responsible for the secular as well as the spiritual welfare of their congregations and should guide the members of their flocks on social, economic, and political matters. He showed his will in this regard when, in 1957, he asked all faithful Catholics to, pray for the silent church. The word church, as he used it, means whole body of Christian believers. The ecclesiastical organization or power is distinguished from the state. Don't let anyone tell you different. If they do, they lie. If they lie, they serve the devil's cause. The Luciferian conspiracy could not have developed since our Lord died to its semi-final stage if those who had pretended to be Christian clergy, dedicated to God, had not sinned against him by maintaining silence on this all-important subject. Silence on any wickedness like that we see, on any abuse that we see, especially to a more vulnerable sentient being. That's a big no-no. And again, you can almost see these consequences of our actions coming at us really quickly now. Some will say karma. I don't care personally what word you use. But God is schooling us all really quickly. And just like the signs in the heavens are getting closer together now, like birth pains, our hiccups, we're paying immediately for them, basically. And it's ironic how all these people who were allegedly on that star disappeared now. Please understand that there are good forces working behind the scenes as well, not just wicked ones. Don't be fooled by that. That's the idea they want. That's the reality they want you to have in your head, because it sort of builds your own prison there if you believe that the darkness and wickedness is winning right now. It just so happens that Satan controls the airwaves. So we don't get to see the things that are happening all over that are good, right? Unless they would somehow be able to be manipulated. So it says, let me remind my readers that no ecclesiastical authority, Catholic or non-Catholic, has challenged the truth of what I say on this subject. Hundreds of ordained priests and ministers have admitted that I have convinced them of the truth. The majority of them excuse themselves from helping me openly by saying, I'm under discipline. I'm afraid God does not accept that's a valid excuse. God dispensed with all forms of compulsory discipline. Under God's plan for the rule of the universe, we're free to love and serve him of our own will, or to be separated and go to hell in our own way. It is time we stop making excuses and proceeded to prove to the Father, to God, I think to the Mother too, that we wish to love and serve him. And again, I don't like it when people make it look like God is arrogant. Arrogance is not a godly attribute. If God was arrogant, he would force us all into doing whatever he wanted us. Think about it. A God of a creature of beings, or a plethora of beings, you have the power to squash them if you want to. Most people who, if they're given a position that's higher like that, they use it to step on other people and to justify poor treatment of others. That's not godly. Please understand, again, everyone trying to put this paper doll image over top of God and what he is or what he isn't. Use your heart. This is where your heart matters. And I'm not talking about feelings. I'm talking about agape kind of love. If you don't know what that means, look it up, because I could do a whole video just on that one word. Okay, so author's note. Da, 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 da. Okay, so he's going on and on about how he got into the study. Oh, here we go. Because of its very nature, the Luciferian revolt must of necessity be designed to bring about the destruction of all other forms of government and religion, so that in the final stage of the conspiracy, you are here, that's where we're at, the Luciferian ideology may be imposed on what is left of the human race by satanic despotism. Today we term this totalitarian dictatorship. That is the only reason I was invited to Florida, was to purge me, was to end me. Because at that time, Florida was having a purge. It is going across in waves, and you can almost see it in the media when it's happening in one state, because they'll block off certain roads, certain routes, certain bridges, certain tunnels. And first it was the elderly. And who got in trouble for that with a slap on the wrist? Cuomo, right? Now he's back to doing whatever. Everybody forgot that he let those elderly people pass on and they were ended. Next, it will be the disabled. Not those who have someone that love them and look after them, but that's who they'll go after. People on SSA, SSI, all the vulnerable. It is survival of the fittest in the Luciferian kingdom. God is not like that. Everybody here is essential. If you're here, it's because the creator of everything is allowing it to happen. So you have a purpose. We may not know it yet. You might not know it yet. You might restart a couple of times. But if you're here, you're already essential. Don't let anyone take away your genuine uniqueness. Because they already try to do that by telling us there's all these different universes and all these different yous and all these different parallel. Even if there are all those things, every one of us is unique and special to the creator, maker, fabricator of everything. Don't fall for this, guys. We should be past this type of division. and barbarism to our fellow man. Because of its very nature, Luciferian revolt must of necessity be designed. Okay, I read that part. Today we term this as totalitarian dictatorship. Obviously, it's much easier for a small but powerful group to subjugate one person, one group, one organization, one government, or one religion than it is to subjugate dozens and even hundreds of individuals. Therefore, the Synagogue of Satan introduced internationalism. The late William Lyon Mackenzie King, Prime Minister of Canada for nearly a quarter of the 20th century, sold the Rockefeller family on this idea early in the 1900s when he was Labour Minister in the Canadian government. Imagine that. Just as Albert Pike worked secretly to bring about a one-world government and a one-world religion, Luciferianism, so did Mackenzie King. He specialized in bringing organized labor under control of the top international authority because if those placed in control at the top are agents of the Synagogue of Satan, organized labor could be used to foment wars and revolutions, leading to the destruction of governments and religions. And make no mistake, to the destruction of mankind. War severely, and signing up for it willingly, can severely damage a person's salvation. I don't know that a person can be saved if they go into that willingly, knowingly, already knowing God. A lot of people were saved while at war. But if you go into this willingly and you don't resist and you don't stand firm, thou shalt not kill. Killing is not loving. When God does a thing or asks people to do a thing, that is God. That's the maker of all. He has a reason. We got to trust in that. And again, it's not because he's wicked. If he was wicked and he was just homicidal, none of us would be here. None of us. Then after organized labor had been used to stir up strife between capital and labor and cause economic chaos and turmoil, it could in turn be subjected in the final stage of the conspiracy, where we are now. Obviously, an international organization controlled at the top by secret agents of the Synagogue of Satan can be more easily controlled than hundreds of independents. Does any thinking person believe that the thugs, ex-convicts, and university graduates in economics who control organized labor at the top are not agents of the Illuminati, otherwise known as the Synagogue of Satan? If this were true, why are those in control trying to make it compulsory for all workers to join unions? The same principle as Mackenzie King used in organized labor is used by those who direct the WRM, which is what he's relating to, like Satanism, but he's relating it to like this corporate type of brand, which is weird. I'm still not figuring out why he's doing that. Thus, we see that previous to the organization of the League of Nations, the policy of those who directed the WRM at the top had been to split up and destroy all powerful governments, religions, industrial, financial, capitalistic, and labor organizations. So again, like I said, every clan is fighting against each other as well. These ancient ones who seem to have come back now at this point and have taken over other people's vessels like containers, they fight each other too. So make no mistake there. And again, that can also be used to our advantage. World War II was fomented and fought to further soften up nationalism and rugged individualism. The United Nations organization was set up on land provided by the Rockefellers, by whom Mackenzie King employed from 1914 to 1919, conveniently during the Spanish flu. The UN is intended to give an air of respectability to internationalism, which communism and Nazism had brought into disrepute. The Synagogue of Satan controlled the United Nations as they controlled the League of Nations, obviously. Looking back, we can see how this secret power has controlled every strong and powerful group, organization, movement, and government from behind the scenes by means of specialists, experts, advisors, kind of like they're bringing ICE in now. All these young people who are excited to be chosen. Who's behind masks? Are you listening? Because you know well by the video I did yesterday, and anyone that watches my channel knows, I don't judge people by their ethnicity. But Americans all have accents. You can be from the north and the south and sound completely different. And everyone who is in an ICE mask, they're hiding their ethnicity. They all sound like they're Spanish, and they all sound like they all behave like cartel members, organized crime. That's all any of it is. And I hate that ICE is the same word that they use for that drug too. It's also what they call methamphetamine, ICE. It's a nickname for it on the street or whatever. Don't like that at all. Because again, they're being sneaky with all this. Just like BLM also stands for Bureau of Land Management. They were trying to tell your subconscious something. Our land has been divided and sold up already. A lot of it. And again, Trump is the perfect person to liquidate the corporation of America in this time. The synagogue of Satan controlled the United Nations, blase, blase. Every development of the Luciferian conspiracy led to the stage in which the world finds itself today. Its progress can be tracked back to the days when Christ told us bluntly and plainly that the synagogue of Satan controlled all those in high places. Christ spoke the truth, but he did not say, nor did he imply that all those in high places realized that they were controlled by the synagogue of Satan. It is for this reason that Christ showed us by the nature, manner, and place of his birth, by his early life of subjection to the lawful and parental authority, by the way he chose his apostles, humble working men, and his teachings during the last 3 years of his life, that if we wish to break free from the bonds with which we are bound more and more strongly every day by the synagogue of Satan, we must start at the very bottom, at the grassroots, to make known the truth concerning the continued existence of the Luciferian conspiracy to all nations as quickly as possible. I mean, it's a done deal now, and you don't see people standing up. And they make excuses for every loud boom that you have. So if any of our patriots are standing up at this time, that's what people don't understand. A lot of them, like when you're signing on with the military and when you agree to keep secrets and you go through the things they go through and you're not confessing and you're not having like a regular spiritual life, like these people become demonized. They act in ways that are not natural to their personality, to the God-given spirit that God gave them. And that's dangerous. And you can tell by the words that are being used in sound bites all over that they are attempting to wake up these dark soldiers in these times who mockingly refer to themselves as the chosen ones, which Russ Dizdar told us. Men, wake up. Everybody's still going to work to get these Happy Meal toys. It's time to gather. It's been past time to organize. And I'm not promoting violence in any way, shape, or form. I'm saying turn your back on the system. Stop using the money. Let's gain skills. Let's start trading, bartering, whatever we got to do. Do you really want to be in a system that's headed by PDF files, allegedly anyways? Or fallen angels either? Is that what you want? Do you want to be a slave? Well, if I'm their favorite, maybe they'll be good to me. Man, don't talk like that and don't think like that. That's self-defeatist. This is not going to work if you are a person who has a conscience and if you are an independent thinker and you simply just don't want told what to do either way or what to think. You're not their ideal citizen. Okay? The purge is a real thing, man. Men and women, like friends, it's a real thing. Let's see what else he goes on to say. Christ gave us the Lord's Prayer so that by repeating it daily, we would have the above truths impressed upon our minds. It must be obvious that if we did establish God's kingdom here on earth, his will would be done here as it is in heaven. When Christ told those who persecuted him, "My kingdom is not of this world," he did not say, nor did he imply, that it wasn't our duty to introduce God's plan for the rule of the universe into our own forms of government. And this is where he and I would separate. Because I think we need to let go of that word and that terminology. And I think we need to be in smaller tribal communities. And I don't mean bloodlines. I mean tribes that you pick, like-minded people, so that we can, at that point, thrive and watch each other's six, watch each other's backs. Back in the day, that's what it was like. If somebody was having a problem, somebody in the household would notice and say, hey, I see you're having a problem with alcohol. I've been there. I had that problem. Let's talk about it so that we can have proper fellowship with each other and be mirrors to each other like we're supposed to be. Living this way was never sustainable, and it boggles my mind that people are still wanting to be a part of it. I don't have options like everybody else. I don't know what to do, honestly. I have skills. But again, it's hard to gather and organize as one. Like, I can teach you how to fish. I can do first aid. I can do CPR. Like, I have skills, but according to this system, they don't want me. Flat out. They want to purge me. And they want to purge most of you too. Make no mistake. It is mankind. There will be an excuse. Everyone that's left, right? Think of, I could say chess, but that's overused and it's kind of not what I'm thinking of. Every group that they get rid of, when there's someone that takes its place, they're going to get rid of all of them, even the ones who think that they're safe, because it's an anti-life form, anti-sentient life, anti-human, really, agenda. And anything else that God loves. If God loves it, they will attack it. You have to understand that this is spiritual. And you could say, well, I'm not a spiritual person. You better get spiritual real quick. And I'm not telling you what religion to choose, right? I'm not telling you what to do. Because again, conversion by force never works. These holy wars have not worked in the past. History won't repeat itself if we stop participating in it. Stop participating in the war. Stop pushing for holy wars. Stop helping them tear apart everything. There are certain things, we don't have to tear apart everything. The family, don't tear those apart unless, again, you have to go with other like-minded communities. But this is definitely not the time to be worried about your 401k, because there ain't going to be any of those. Those days are gone. So you better get serious about learning some real-life skills now. I can't really prepare your body. Again, I can teach you how to do basics. I can tell you how to put up a tent. First aid, fishing, I can do all that for you. But really what I'm here for is to help you get mentally aware and strong, and to tell you how I did that, because if I can do it, anybody can, because I'm weak. I'm pathetic. I realize that. I'm not the prettiest person. I'm not beautiful. And I'm also not the sharpest crayon in the box. So I myself, I need the one who made me. And each one of you is essential. But this is not how we were ever intended to live. Ever. But we've defaulted to allowing Satan to be the god of this world when he never was. That's a lie from really, really bad pastors and ministers and teachers. Well, he would have never offered it to Christ if it wasn't his to give. What's rule number 1? Always refer to rule number 1. The devil is a liar. It was never his to give. But we've allowed it. God is waiting for us. He gave us the land. He gave us to have dominion over this. This is our domain. I'm going to bounce now. We learned quite a lot here. Again, there's people trying to warn you. I've introduced you to a lot of different writings like this, a lot of different books, and a lot of different authors. If you want to browse through the website on your own, the link is in the description box, guys. If you feel the urge, please pray for me as I pray for you. Next, we're going to do something more lighthearted. I would like to read some of the Book of the Holy 12, and we're going to get back to the ginormous statues that are appearing everywhere. We're going to look into that a little bit more. You guys have a blessed day. Go do something for somebody, and go put your feet in the earth. It feels good. Bye, guys.